There are thousands of roller coasters operating in the world today. Some have been operating for over 100 years, but with every coaster that stands the test of time, there are some that barely got a chance to shine. These rides just didn't work out and ended up closing down shortly after opening. Coaster enthusiasts who have ridden these rare credits can claim the ultimate bragging rights for getting to ride the attraction so few people got a chance to experience. Today we'll be taking a look at some of the most fascinating coasters that closed way too soon. Number 10. Windjammer Surf Racers at Knott's Berry Farm. Operated for 3 years. Imagine if you took two Wild Mouse coasters, had them dual, and put a vertical loop on each of them. You'd get the Togo Looping Mouse. This coaster model can currently only be found in Asia, but at one point there was actually one installed in America. In 1997, Knott's Berry Farm introduced their first surfing-themed coaster experience, Windjammer Surf Racers. While it seemed like an exciting addition at the time, these dueling coasters were, to say the least, an absolute technical nightmare. They were subject to numerous mechanical issues and were so sensitive to weather that even a slight breeze would shut them down. The ride's problems were so bad that Cedar Fair sued Togo, calling the ride's poor operation an embarrassment. Cedar Fair was awarded $17 million in damages, which in turn caused Togo to go bankrupt. As for the ride, after it was dismantled in 2001, it was replaced with Accelerator, the world's first intimate accelerator. In many ways, it's a good thing Windjammer Surf Racers failed, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten this pink and aqua masterpiece. Number 9. The Bat at Kings Island. Operated for 2 years. No, I'm not referring to the bat that's still operating, but instead the bat that once stood where Vortex is today. Back in 1981, Aerodynamics introduced their first ever suspended coaster. Its unique design got quite a bit of media attention when it first opened, and it was said to give an incredibly intense ride. Unfortunately, much like Windjammer Surf Racers, it suffered from numerous technical difficulties. These issues were reportedly caused by its faulty brake system and the lack of banking on the track's turns. The latter issue put too much stress on the track, making it a maintenance nightmare. Attempts were made to fix the ride, but they proved to be both expensive and ineffective. Pretty much the only way to make this coaster fully operational was to start from scratch, which was completely out of the question. So the ride shut down just 2 years after it opened. 4 years after the ride's closure, another Aerodynamics coaster named Vortex was built in its place. This is a custom looper, and if you have a good eye, you can see the original footers of the bat right next to its track. Later on in 1993, another Aero suspended coaster was built at the park and named Top Gun. Eventually though, it was renamed the Bat in 2014 in honor of the original, which causes plenty of confusion when talking about the bat that was demolished years ago. Number 8. Thunder Eagle at Race World. Operated for 14 months. This was the first wooden coaster to open in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. While the city is more commonly known for Dollywood, this coaster opened just minutes away in 2000 at Race World. In case you don't remember, Race World was an amusement center and souvenir shop owned by several NASCAR drivers and officials. In 2000, the center opened up what was supposed to be their main attraction, a wooden coaster named Thunder Eagle. Originally, this coaster was going to be named the Intimidator, which would have been an entire decade before Carowind's B&M Hypercoaster opened. The ride was manufactured by Coaster Works Incorporated, the same company that manufactured Florida's defunct Dania Beach Hurricane. Thunder Eagle and Dania Beach Hurricane were the only two coasters made by this company. Unfortunately, Thunder Eagle didn't last long, as Race World ended up shutting down due to its low attendance. After 2 years of standing but not operating on the property, the coaster was moved to a theme park in Quebec. However, it was never constructed since the park never actually opened. Meanwhile, this coaster's trains were sent to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where they are currently being used on Zip and Pippin. Fortunately for the city of Pigeon Forge, Dollywood would open up Thunderhead shortly after Thunder Eagle's closure, giving the city the world-class wooden coaster it deserved. Number 7. Skytrak at Granada Studios. Operated for 1 year. Remember the mini suspended flying coaster from Roller Coaster Tycoon? Well, a real-life version of this coaster once existed at Manchester's defunct Granada Studios. For those of you that don't know, Granada Studios was a television studio in England that once offered a studio tour and a one-of-a-kind coaster model. Believe it or not, this right here is technically the world's first flying coaster, sending riders through the course face down. While the concept of a flying coaster would eventually take off, pun intended, the ride was plagued with problems from the start. Originally scheduled to open in the summer of 1997, the ride's opening opening was delayed to October. Unfortunately, it only opened for a brief period of time, and by the time they got the ride working in 1998, the park would end up shutting down the same year. After the studio's closure, the coaster was scrapped and was never seen or heard from again. Number 6. Vertigo at Walibi, Belgium, operated for 11 months. Despite the claims, Wonder Woman Golden Lasso is not the first single rail coaster ever created. Many others have operated before it, including Vertigo at Walibi, Belgium. This unique coaster type, known as a mountain glider, was the only roller coaster manufactured by Doppelmayr, a company that specializes in cable cars. This massive attraction was one of the tallest coasters in Europe when it first opened, and is one of the tallest suspended coasters of all time. It was meant to be a major attraction for the park and was scheduled to open in the 2006 season. However, because of the coaster's numerous technical problems, the ride's opening was delayed to 2007, and even then it only operated sporadically. Between the 2007 and 2008 season, the track was taken down by the manufacturer and completely reworked. By 2008, everything seemed to be going great, and a grand opening was held with Belgian actor Jean-Claude Van Damme in attendance. Just days after this big event though, the ride broke down yet again, only this time the problem was far too complicated and costly to fix. So the coaster was scrapped later that year. Since then, Doppelmayr hasn't manufactured another roller coaster, but you can still check out their cable cars around the world. Number 5. Dragon Wagon at Luna Park, operated for less than a year. For a ride you can easily find at your local carnival, this particular Wisdom Rides Dragon Wagon has quite a history behind it. Sometime in the late 80s, pop star Michael Jackson had this coaster installed at his private amusement park, Neverland Ranch. The park would be the site of several private celebrity events, as well as a fair share of controversial activities. The ride would stay on the property until it was shut down around the time the ranch closed in 2006. Shortly after Jackson's death in 2009, park officials at Brooklyn, New York's Luna Park installed this attraction as a tribute to the late singer. Photos of Jackson were placed on the ride station, and fans were invited to ride this interesting piece of Jackson's life. This was the first and only time the ride opened to the public, and having such a credit would certainly give you enthusiasts bragging rights. Number 4. Gulf Coaster at Six Flags Great America, operated for less than a year. Located at what was formerly known as Marriott's Great America, this ride was perhaps the most dangerous kiddie coaster of all time. While plenty of Alan Herschel Little Dippers exist to this day, this one in particular was especially infamous. The ride's lift hill mechanism reportedly caught fire several times. If you were a parent, the last thing you would want your kid riding is something that's known to combust on more than one occasion. To put it bluntly, this coaster was flat out broken and was far more dangerous than anything you could find in one of those top 10 clickbait video thumbnails. Because of its short lifetime, footage of this ride is extremely rare, which is why I've had to use this clip several times. Number 3. Ring Racer at Nürburgring, operated for 4 days. With all of the high-speed thrills that launch coasters provide, it only seems fitting that one would go to a race course. That's exactly what happened when officials at Germany's Nürburgring racecourse decided to give the facility a serious upgrade. This upgrade came in the form of a massive S&S air launch coaster. It seemed like an excellent idea on paper, but to put it lightly, the ride was a big, expensive disaster. First of all, while it was originally intended to reach a top speed of 135 miles per hour, the speed was reduced to 99 miles per hour after a major incident while testing. In 2009, the ride's pneumatic launch system actually exploded during the testing phase, injuring several people and shattering the building's windows. It wasn't until 2013 that the ride finally opened to the public, and it seemed like Nürburgring would finally have a world-class coaster on their hands. But then the ride suffered a massive mechanical problem just days after opening. At this point, Nürburgring decided that this ride was not worth fixing and declared it would never reopen. On the other hand, the track is still standing there to this day, and there are reportedly plans to eventually reopen the coaster. So there may be a silver lining to this story after all. Number 2. Twist Coaster Robin at Yomiuriland, operated for 1 day. Just when you thought Ring Racer was the biggest disaster of all time when it comes to roller coasters, in comes Twist Coaster Robin. This S&S creation was a custom variation of their El Loco model, featuring a beyond vertical drop, 2 inversions, and a unique element known as a reverse cant curve. And that's almost as crazy sounding as the Trick Track Double Up. At 450 million yen, this coaster was the largest single investment for Yomiuriland in 16 years. And park officials were very excited for this ride's great grand opening. Tragically though, on the same day it opened to the public, two of the trains collided. Nobody was hurt in the incident, but the entire ride was apparently broken beyond repair, so it was put into standing but not operating mode until its removal in 2016. Since then, the grand opening has become known as the biggest failure in roller coaster history. At least Son of Beast lasted for a while before it was torn down. Number 1. Orphan Rocker at Scenic World. Operated only for testing. Yes, the name of this coaster is actually Orphan Rocker. While it does sound strange at first, it's actually named after the famous Orphan Rock in New South Wales, Australia, and this coaster was constructed at the nearby Scenic World. Touted as being the world's scariest roller coaster, this ride fully utilized the mountainous terrain with a long, sprawling ride and a unique set of trains. The cars on these trains would swing side to side during the course, much like the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Disney's Magic Kingdom. The ride's designer Philip Hammond spent several years creating this coaster and hoped it would be a big draw for Scenic World. While it did technically operate at the park, it never actually opened to the public. Before the ride's planned opening, Hammond himself tested the ride with his family and Australian actor Gary Hu was there doing a segment for a documentary show. It was during this initial testing phase that Hammond encountered several issues with the ride. Hammond spent the next few decades trying to fix the ride, but despite his efforts, it never ended up opening. Nowadays, the track is still sitting on the property, unused for nearly 30 years. Before I sign off for today, I'd like to announce the winner of last week's weekly poll. With 176 votes, the winner is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Second place went to Lightning Rod at Dollywood with 103 votes, and third went to the Beast at Kings Island with 71 votes. So thank you very much to everyone who voted. And for this week's weekly poll, I'd like to ask, which of the coasters mentioned in this video would you like to learn more about? I'm thinking of making in-depth videos about each of these coasters, detailing their full histories. So feel free to head on down to themeparkcrazy.com and cast your vote. Thanks for watching, everyone. Feel free to subscribe and follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You could find links in the description. This is Theme Park Crazy, and I'll see you all next time.